So what are the 6 types of special use airspace that protect this national security that appear on FAA charts?
Sorry, Senator, I cannot answer that question.
Okay, so what are the operational limitations of a pilot flying under basic med?
Senator, I'm not a pilot, so...
So can you tell me what causes an aircraft to spin or to stall?
Again, Senator, I'm not a pilot.
I want to go right to William Trachman, General Counsel for Mountain States Legal. William, I'm grateful for you here. Who is that gentleman that we just saw in that clip right there?
Well, that's the person who's supposed to know the answers to those questions, because we have an aviation system in the United States that relies on people being experts under fire when it matters, when there's pressure. So he can go Google those answers, and I'm sure he can come back and submit the answers to those questions to the representatives there. But at the end of the day, the question is not whether you can answer questions after research, it's whether you can respond to emergencies and difficult situations off the fly. And for that, you need skills and qualifications and the best person for the job.
So the special is about DEI, and I have never heard a more absurd DEI story than with the air traffic controllers. Tell us what happened with a life and death job that we all depend on. How did DEI infect it?
So my firm, Mountain States Legal Foundation, represents over 900 people who would be air traffic controllers today, but they were taken out, they were filtered out of the application system because of their race. So they passed a pre-employment test that the FAA forced them to take. And then after they passed that test, the FAA decided the hiring pool was too white. And so the FAA flushed that test, including the score of our client. So even though our clients already passed, they didn't grandfather them in. They forced them to take a new test, and then they failed the new test, which was called a biographical assessment, a very ominous name for an air traffic controller. Anytime you're worried about biography instead of skills and merit, you've got an issue. So it's a class action case. We're seeking hundreds of millions of dollars against the FAA for the fact that our clients never became air traffic controllers. Obviously, that's having an impact today with the shortage of air traffic controllers and all the incidents we're seeing in aviation. And so not only is it illegal, what the FAA did, it's also dangerous for the American traveler.
Yeah, we've heard more and more stories of close calls, as they call them on the runway. I think people will be shocked at how often there are close calls of airplanes almost landing on top of other airplanes.
Yeah, I mean, those are just the ones we hear about. How many are going on that we don't know about because nobody catches it, or they're too embarrassed to report the second or third near miss of the week? We definitely have a problem. And, you know, it's easy to say, well, you can't pin this on DEI. It's the planes, it's Boeing, it's something else. But DEI infects all of these institutions, the FAA, Boeing, the airlines themselves. People are caring more about diversity, equity, race, gender than actual merit. And so whether or not these incidents can be drawn with a straight line to DEI, the point of the matter is you need the best people for the job in a high-stakes industry, which is exactly what this is.
Yeah, it's very hard to build airplanes. It's very hard to fly airplanes. It's very hard to make sure that planes operate properly at an airport. It takes a lot of merit and a lot of skill. And we've relied on our coattails for far too long, I'd argue. We're giving up on it, and things are going to go very bad. And you're ahead of it. I'm grateful for that. But I want to go back to this biographical questionnaire, because when I first read the questionnaire, I can't believe this is possibly true. So instead of this test that you spoke of that they threw the results at, they have a questionnaire, but a questionnaire doesn't have right answers. So they would ask a question like, correct me if I'm wrong, how many sports did you play in high school? Or what was your worst subject in school? But there were right or wrong answers to that.
Right, so they give you a multiple choice test like that. And then depending on what answer you give, you get a certain number of points. So, for instance, if you failed high school science, that got you a higher number of points than if you failed high school math. Now, to be fair, that doesn't mean that you pass the test automatically. It means that they had a mosaic of different things. And obviously someone in the background did a study to see which races failed which classes most often. And of course, the sports that you did in high school are entirely irrelevant to your qualifications as an air traffic controller. But that's exactly the type of gerrymandering that the FAA undertook in order to filter out our clients And at the end of the day, our clients couldn't pass the biographical questionnaire no matter how many times they took it because they couldn't get the right answers that got them these points. There were questions about, do you have experience as a pilot before, which would be indirectly relevant to being an air traffic controller. And that got you fewer points than if you failed science in high school, which is, worrisome as a traveler.
That's so ridiculous. First of all, you can't pass a questionnaire. That doesn't make any sense. There can't be right answers.
Right. So the FAA is arguing that this is a valid test, that they have done the studies in the background to make sure that an air traffic controller who passes this test can go to the right training programs and become an air traffic controller and succeed. And our argument is that they didn't sufficiently validate it and that it hasn't turned out to be valid. We have a couple of pending FOIA requests now with the FAA as well, although they have not responded to them yet, because it can't be the case, as you point out, that answering these questions in a right way actually created a good air traffic controller makeup.
So if they just wanted more Black or Hispanic or whatever air traffic controllers, just look at a picture, right? So why even have a questionnaire at all? What does the questionnaire, from their perspective, parse out?
So they want to say that they have an ongoing duty to minimize disparate impact questions on whatever they're doing. So if they are imposing some sort of pre-employment test or other qualification for the job, and that has an impact more on African Americans than other things, and we've seen that with criminal background checks in employment as well, that the EEOC is coming down hard on that, saying it creates a disparate impact that is racist against African Americans. And so they said, in order to avoid the disparate impact, we're going to change the whole test, make it more fair, make it so that it's even, and that everyone has an equal chance. And so they don't have to, encounter federal civil rights laws like Title VII that prohibit, direct affirmative action programs in almost every case. Of course, that's what we're suing under, is the federal civil rights law. So we think we have a very strong case.
Yeah, I would hope so. You would think so, and I hope so. So again, the conclusion of all this, because it's so mind-boggling, I've heard this story multiple times now, and I don't know if enough people, certainly not enough people have heard this story. What is the end result? Let's go like parallel universe. So we go the way we've been going, or an ideal way, I would say, of how we find the best people for the job versus this FAA current route. Where do we end up in X number of years?
Well, as we've seen in the Biden-Harris administration, they have a whole of government approach to equity. And so even if there's a little bit of slack, a little bit of ability to withstand these types of DEI measures currently, eventually it comes back to bite you, right? That at a certain point of time in the aviation industry, there's going to be an emergency, there's going to be a weather condition or a mechanical failure, and you're going to have a situation where you don't have the best person for the job. In our world, the world where we win and where the FAA suffers pain from doing this DEI agenda, then I think we'll have a difference in the future, and we'll have the government saying, look, it's not worth the PR headache, it's not worth the judgment of millions of dollars in order to accomplish our social engineering goals. And so we'll have to pull back, and we'll have to see whether merit and equality reign going forward.
That's great. Where can people learn more about this case?
So we're at mslegal.org. That's mslegal.org. We're always looking for new supporters, but we're also looking for new cases. So if you have a great idea for a case, go ahead and submit it to us there at mslegal.org.
Nice. William Trachman, General Counsel at Mountain States Legal, mslegal.org. Great talking to you, William. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.